I do not chase abundance. I prepare for it. The man who seeks wealth by running louder and faster than others forgets this. Abundance is not noise, it is alignment. It comes not to the loudest voice, but to the most silently prepared mind. When I walk the battlefield before the first arrow flies, it is not because I am eager for war. It is because I intend to win it before it begins. So too is life. So too is the pursuit of anything that multiplies: wealth, mastery, legacy. The outcome is already unfolding before the world notices. The victory is claimed in silence, not in the applause that follows. I have seen men beg the gods for prosperity while their minds are scattered, untrained, disorganized. I have watched them light candles for luck while their discipline leaks like water from a cracked vessel. And when misfortune returns, when opportunity knocks and they are not ready, they curse. Fate. Fools blame timing. Strategists blame no one. They adjust. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. If the structure of your day is chaotic, if your attention is easily stolen, if your mornings begin in reaction, what abundance do you think you are summoning? What empire are you preparing to govern? The wealth you seek will pass you like wind through open hands, not because you are unworthy, but because you were unready. The world rewards preparation, not desire, and preparation is quiet. The archer does not brag as he strings his bow in the morning frost. The warrior does not declare his kill before the blade meets flesh. And the builder of wealth, the true one, does not boast of plans. He wakes before light. He counts when others spend. He listens when others speak. He studies when others scroll. And he forms himself like a blade, not to impress, but to be sharp when it matters. Abundance is not a matter of chance. It is the byproduct of invisible discipline repeated without audience. The modern world has corrupted the meaning of preparation. It parades productivity like theater. It shows routines like trophies. But true power is never advertised. The deepest transformation is silent. You will not see me preparing. You will see me win. And by the time you ask how, it will be too late to imitate. There is a reason the generals who survive are the ones who plan in the shadows. They know that when the clash arrives, it is too late to build discipline. It is too late to buy clarity. The time to lay foundations is when no one is watching. That is the soil where real power grows. I do not fear the rich. I fear the one who is quietly becoming rich and says nothing. I do not fear the loud investor. I fear the one reading 50 books in silence, taking notes with no camera to record him, no post to validate him, no friend to praise him. Because when he finally speaks, it is to act. And when he moves, it is with force that was stored, not performed. This is why most do not keep what they gain, because they rushed to display success without forming the character to carry it. Abundance is weight. It bends the unprepared. It exposes the undisciplined. If you do not have structure before it comes, it will destroy you. That is why it arrives late. It tests your resolve by not showing up. It wants to see if you truly want it, or if you only want the feeling of chasing it. So, I prepare in silence. Not because I am humble, but because I am calculating. Not because I fear failure, but because I know how dangerous success is when met too early. I write the plan 10 times. I walk the terrain 20 times. I check the weather, the wind, the slope of the land. I study the opponent. I study myself more. I remove what is excessive. I tighten the formation. I do not need to be seen practicing. I need to be ready when it counts. That is wealth. That is power. That is strategy. You ask me how to be abundant. I ask you, when no one is looking, what do you repeat? That is your real trajectory. The man who sharpens his sword daily will not panic in war. The one who budgeted when there was little will not fear when there is plenty. The one who focused when there were distractions will not be moved when chaos erupts. Abundance comes not to those who scream for it, but to those who build for it before it arrives. Not in performance, in silence. Not in dreams, in structure. Not in inspiration, in repetition. You must become the kind of vessel that can carry what you seek. Otherwise, it will pass through you like water through fingers. So I begin each day not by demanding more, but by demanding more of myself. Because I know what is coming, and when it comes, I will be ready. Not loud, not lucky. Ready. The greatest wealth is not what you see, it's what no one sees. Not the coins stacked, but the restraint not to spend them. Not the titles earned, but the nights no one clapped for. Not the vault, but the vault keeper who never forgot the combination, even in solitude. So many wish to be rewarded before they have proven trustworthy. But wealth does not reward longing. It rewards structure. To keep abundance is harder than to gain it, because once it arrives, the world sees you. And when the world sees you, it tests you. The test is not how loudly you can celebrate. The test is how quietly you can continue. When I build wealth, I do not tell the world, because the moment the world knows, it tries to take, it tempts, it flatters. It surrounds you with questions, with suggestions, with alliances that were never meant to last. When your pockets swell, so too do the hands reaching for them. That is why I train in silence, to defend without noise, to grow without parade. I have seen emperors destroyed not by war, but by celebration. They built for years and lost in moments because they mistook applause for immortality. I will not make that mistake. I wear discipline like armor, not decoration. And I keep my abundance veiled, like a blade in the folds of my robe, unseen but sharpened. You must understand, your preparation is your protection. If you are not prepared for victory, then victory is not a gift. It is a curse. It will arrive and reveal your cracks. It will amplify your indulgence. It will multiply your laziness. It will whisper, "You've made it," just before you fall. You do not become wealthy when you make money. You become wealthy when money can no longer change who you are. That kind of steadiness only comes from silence, from mornings spent in discomfort, from nights spent reviewing the day, not for regret, but for correction, from weeks where nothing seems to happen, yet the structure deepens. If you need others to see your progress, you are still weak. If you measure success by response, you are still distracted. The most dangerous man is not the one who has won. It is the one who is still preparing, who does not need credit, who sharpens his discipline for himself. That is why I fear the one who says nothing. He does not argue. He listens. He does not prove. He improves. He does not display. He prepares. And when the moment comes, when chaos hits, when markets tremble, when those who borrowed confidence now run in panic, he will move. Not out of emotion, but out of formation. Because he practiced when no one else did. Because he saved when others spent. Because he studied when others joked. Because he said no, again and again and again. Not because he hated pleasure, but because he loved power more. That is the battlefield of abundance, not out there in the world, but inside your routine. I often hear the weak say, "I'll start when I'm ready." But readiness is not a feeling. It is a process. It is not found. It is built. No one wakes up prepared. You grind for it, shape it, bleed for it, alone. If you wait to feel ready, you will never act. But if you prepare in silence, the day will come when the feeling does not matter, only the response. The strategist does not ask if today is the right day to prepare. Every day is the right day. Every hour is a vote. Every repeated action is a rehearsal for when it counts. You are either building readiness or you are building weakness. There is no neutral ground. So, I repeat, again, 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 not for glory, for readiness. Because I have studied history, I have seen what happens to those who beg abundance before they are prepared. It crushes them, it mocks them, it turns their success into spectacle, then leaves them hollow and confused. But I have also seen another path, the silent one, the one where a man disappears from the noise, masters his time, sharpens his focus, stacks his knowledge, guards his energy. He prepares not for applause, but for alignment. And when the world finally sees him, they call it sudden success. It is never sudden. It is the final result of 1,000 silent days. This is the paradox of preparation. The more quietly you build, the more loudly your results speak. So if you wish to build abundance, first learn to vanish. Vanish from distraction. Vanish from comparison. Vanish from the need to prove. Appear only to act. And act only when prepared. That is strategy. That is wealth. That is how I win. There is a kind of wealth that cannot be measured in currency. It is the wealth of command. The ability to command your time, your energy, your attention. Most never achieve it because they sell it too early, too cheaply, for distractions dressed as urgency. But the prepared man, he hoards his command like gold. He gives it to no one unless it serves the formation. I do not wake up to chaos. I do not stumble into the day. Before the sun rises, I have already claimed it. My mind is set. My movement is deliberate. Because if I do not shape the day, it will shape me. And the world is not neutral. It pushes, it pulls, it scatters. It does not reward the unstructured. Abundance flows where structure holds. Without it, all fortune is temporary. The undisciplined believe that more money will fix their life. They are wrong. Money only amplifies your systems. If you are lost, it funds your wandering. If you are weak, it funds your indulgence. If you are untrained, it makes your downfall more public, more painful, and more permanent. This is why the silent path is so rare. It demands delay. It demands depth. It offers no dopamine, no instant validation. Just the repetition of command day after day until the system becomes you. That is the preparation I speak of. I do not pray for abundance. I prepare for it. I do not ask the gods to bless me while I live in disorder. I know that order is the gateway, that silence is the forge, that consistency is the altar. The soldier who trains quietly for 10 years will defeat the one who trains publicly for 1, because his mind is forged, not fed. He has not performed discipline, he has become it. You want results, but what you need is rhythm. Rhythm is the heartbeat of mastery, and rhythm is born in silence, not when you feel like it, not when you're inspired, but every day. Even when it's invisible, especially when it's invisible. There are seasons in life where the world will see nothing from you. No wins, no announcements, no signs of progress, but inside, you are stacking, you are shaping, you are fortifying the self, and when the time comes, the silence will speak for you. It will say, "This man was not idle, he was preparing." That is when abundance arrives. Not because you summoned it, but because you built the gravity to attract it. The masses rush for opportunity like a crowd chasing falling coins. They scatter, they collide, they compete. I do not chase. I shape myself into something opportunity cannot ignore. When it circles, it lands. Because it recognizes formation, it smells order, and it fears being wasted. That is how you bend the world toward you, not through noise, but through formation. It is tempting to show the world what you're building, to prove that you're on the path. But the moment you speak too soon, you interrupt the rhythm. You exchange the quiet power of internal momentum for the shallow applause of external approval. That is not strategy. That is weakness. If your confidence depends on others seeing you prepare, then you are still not ready. When I build, I speak not. When I train, I disappear. When I prepare, I do so with the intensity of war. Because I know the battlefield does not care how I feel. It only respects readiness. So I make my silence sharp. Every early morning, every clean decision, every disciplined night, they are not acts of virtue. They are acts of strategy. They are the unseen movements that make visible dominance possible. And when the world finally sees the results, they will call it talent, luck, or divine favor. Let them. Let them name your silence anything they wish, as long as you remember that it was never for them. It was for the war. And the war is not out there. It is in your formation. It is in your daily command. It is in your readiness for what has not yet come. Abundance is a battlefield. Those who survive it are not the boldest. They are the most prepared. I do not look busy. I look still. That is the first illusion I master. For in stillness, I move with purpose. And in quiet, I build what others will not see until it is too late to compete. Those who are loud are often desperate. They need the world to validate their motion. But I know this truth. The man who is truly building does not have time to announce every brick. His attention is consumed by the architecture, not the applause. Let me tell you this. Most of your competitors will lose before the game begins, not because they lack talent, but because they lack rhythm. They have routines dictated by feelings, discipline dictated by mood, vision dictated by others' voices. So I withdraw, not to hide, to sharpen, not to retreat, to realign, not to isolate, to build silence into strength. Because if you cannot command yourself in silence, you will never command in battle. You will be loud but ineffective, visible but fragile, quick but hollow. And the world will tear you down the same way it built you, with noise. This is the fate of those who seek abundance without preparation. They gain a moment, but not momentum. They climb a height they were never trained to hold. And they fall, loudly, publicly, finally. But I train for the aftermath. I build not just to rise, but to remain. And remaining requires structure. A fortress not just of stone, but of habit. A mind not just of hope, but of hierarchy. That is why the hours no one sees are worth more than the ones that shine. Because those hours are private rituals, not for show, but for sharpening. You ask how to build wealth. I say, build yourself. Because true wealth is not what sits in banks. It is the version of you who knows what to do when it comes. And that version is not born in noise. He is forged in repetition, in restraint, in rejection of the unnecessary. This is what I mean by silence. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the absence of distraction, the absence of leaking energy, the absence of proving, defending, reacting. It is the zone where formation occurs. When I move through the world, I am not led by the currency of emotion. I do not spend my focus cheaply. I do not sell my time to every invitation. I guard my gates like a fortress, because I know everything I allow in, I must account for later. And abundance does not dwell where chaos lives. The undisciplined do not lose because they are evil. They lose because they are open to everything. Every alert, every comparison, every invitation, every shortcut, every opinion, and they become bloated with noise. I remain lean in thought, sharp in action, silent in movement. Because when abundance arrives, it does not want to be entertained. It wants to be governed. It wants to land in a system, not a circus. So I do not build for the applause. I build for the aftermath, for the wait, for the war after the victory, for the temptations after the milestone, for the questions after the success. I do not want to only receive. I want to remain unshaken by what I receive. That requires more than ambition. It requires architecture. And architecture begins in silence. Each morning, I do not ask, "What do I feel like doing?" I ask, "What strengthens the formation?" That question eliminates 90% of the noise. It removes the false urgency. It silences the inner weakness. And it points me back to the rhythm, the quiet repetition that sharpens the blade. The world will try to sell you chaos. They will say, hustle louder, share more, show more, move faster. But remember, speed without aim is chaos. Movement without rhythm is distraction. Visibility without discipline is danger. I choose to prepare in silence, because when the storm comes, and it always comes, the world will panic, and I will remain still, not because I'm brave, but because I built a rhythm that does not depend on conditions. That is what wealth demands of you, stillness under pressure. And stillness cannot be faked. It must be earned in silence. I often say, the outcome belongs to those who prepared before the questions were asked. Because when pressure arrives, there is no time left to build character. There is only exposure. And what is exposed under pressure is what you built in silence. Many try to reverse this order. They seek to look confident before they've conquered their own uncertainty. They crave results before they've built the rituals to sustain them. They want applause to compensate for the discipline they refuse to practice. But the world is not fooled. It knows when your strength is hollow. It knows when your structure is borrowed. And it knows when your abundance is premature, when you touch the fruit before you tended the roots. That is why I keep my preparation hidden. I train in the dark. I rehearse alone. I review relentlessly. Not because I fear failure, but because I refuse to let success make me weak. You see, the danger is not in never having abundance. The real danger is in having it before you're built to carry it. That kind of gain is not a blessing. It's a test disguised as reward. And most fail, not because they're evil, but because they're unready. So I work. I work when the world sleeps. I prepare when others pretend. I build when there is nothing to celebrate. Because when the season of abundance comes, I will not be caught adjusting. I will be ready, in rhythm, in clarity, in command. Understand this: the future belongs to those who treat today as sacred, not just when others are watching, but especially when no one is. That is the price of control, the kind that doesn't shake when the numbers rise, when the stakes rise, when the eyes of the world arrive. And make no mistake, they will arrive. One day, the world will ask how you became who you are. And your answer will not be words. It will be how you live, how you hold silence, how you move without panic, how you carry responsibility without complaint, how you remain unmoved when others break. That is what silence gives you. Not peace, but preparation. Not comfort, but command. There is a loneliness in this path. Yes, there will be days when you wonder if it's worth it. When others rise quickly by noise and you rise slowly by discipline. When your reward is not yet visible. When your preparation feels invisible, even to you. But that is the test. That is where most retreat. They trade silence for stimulation. They trade rhythm for reaction. They trade the unseen for the immediate. And in doing so, they lose not just wealth, but themselves. But not me. I will not trade what I am becoming for what I can prove today. I will not spend my discipline to purchase praise. I will not leave formation to chase attention, because I know what waits on the other side of silence. I know that when others run, I will walk. When others panic, I will breathe. When others fall, I will hold. Not because I'm better, but because I built differently. So I choose silence. I choose rhythm. I choose preparation, because abundance is not won in the battlefield. It is drawn quietly, like a bow in the dark, ready to strike when the enemy forgets you were watching. And when I release, it will not be sudden. It will be the final act of 1,000 silent days. I do not ask the world for a lighter burden. I ask myself to build the strength to carry more. Because this is the truth that separates the prepared from the pretender. Abundance does not make life easier. It makes the consequences heavier. The higher you climb, the thinner the air. The more you gain, the more precision you need. A general with 10 soldiers can be careless. A general with 10,000 cannot afford emotion. Every step must be calculated. Every word, every gesture, every decision. It echoes across an army. That is the weight of command. So too with wealth. You think you want more, but what you truly want is to feel powerful. And I tell you this, power is not in possessions. It is in control. And control is forged in your silence, not your noise. If I cannot control myself in scarcity, I will be devoured by abundance. I have seen it many times. The man who wins the battle but loses the war with himself. The man who builds an empire but becomes its slave. The man who gains the world but fears every loss. That is not abundance. That is a gilded prison. True abundance is quiet. It does not shout. It does not chase. It does not seek validation. It is a man sitting in a room, focused. A man who already knows what to do with his next dollar because he rehearsed it 1,000 times when he had none. A man who walks into opportunity already formed, not hoping, not gambling, but executing. You ask me, what is the foundation of that kind of man? I tell you silence. Silence is not weakness. It is compression. It is the compounding of clarity, the storing of decisions, the sculpting of response. Most men react. The prepared man responds. The difference is everything. Reaction is noise. Response is rhythm. Reaction is impulsive. Response is strategic. And that response is only possible if you have trained it into your nervous system, not in chaos, in calm, in the early morning, in the late hour, in the routines so invisible no one claps, but you do them anyway. Because you are not performing, you are forming. I form in silence. Because the mind that is always broadcasting cannot hear the enemy's movement. The warrior who cannot endure solitude will surrender to the crowd, and the man who needs constant feedback will fail when the path requires long, quiet stretches with no results. Yes, I prepare when there is no reward, because I do not train for the high. I train for the fall, and I know it will come. Not because I am pessimistic, because I am strategic. The storm comes for everyone. The question is never if, but when. And when it comes, what will remain? If you built on applause, you will be exposed. If you built on routine, you will be rooted. So I ask you again, who are you becoming when no one is watching? That is not just philosophy. That is your fate. Abundance does not respond to your hopes. It responds to your habits. And habits are not born in emotion. They are born in silence. They are born when you get up after failure and show up again. when you say no to ease and yes to alignment, when you trade one more hour of noise for 10 minutes of stillness, when you decline the quick win to rehearse the long war. This is the paradox. The louder the world gets, the quieter I become, because I know something they do not. I know that volume does not equal power. Stillness does. I do not broadcast my steps. I master them. I do not ask the world to watch me build. I ask the world to feel what I've built, later, when it stands too tall to ignore. And when they ask how I did it, I will not answer, because they would not believe the answer. Silence. Just silence. When you finally stand at the gates of what you desire, wealth, freedom, mastery, legacy, you will come to understand a cruel truth. By then, it will be too late to prepare. You will not rise to the opportunity. You will fall to your level of discipline. And whatever you did in silence will echo forward. That is why I do not negotiate with my routines. They are not casual. They are contracts, signed with sweat, sealed with solitude, and enforced by the version of me I have not yet met, the one who will need every ounce of structure I build today. Because the greatest threat to success is not failure. It is momentum without mastery. That is how empires collapse. That is how kings fall. That is how men who once walked with command become puppets of their own ambition. I've seen the cycle too many times. The man gets a taste of power. He relaxes his rituals. He makes exceptions. He calls them flexibility. Then chaos arrives, and he's unarmed. Not because he lacked tools, but because he stopped sharpening them. So I do not relax at the first sign of victory. I reinforce. I double the discipline. I tighten the formation. I remove the excess. I remind myself, this moment is not the reward. It is the test. And tests are not passed by talking. They are passed by training. You cannot speak your way into strength. You cannot affirm your way into clarity. You cannot manifest what you have not yet rehearsed under fire. Preparation is the proof of belief. You say you want abundance. Show me your calendar. Show me your sleep. Show me your spending when no one is watching. Show me the hours you kept your phone off, the meals you ate in stillness, the way you review your actions without guilt, just clarity. That is belief. Not the words you post, not the goals you declare. Belief is measured in repetition, and repetition is born in silence. But the world has trained you to skip the silence. It feeds you noise, notifications, opinions, updates, distractions. It tells you that progress is exposure, that momentum is movement, that louder is stronger. They are wrong. The strong are not loud. They are anchored. They do not need to scream. Their decisions speak for them. Their posture speaks for them. Their lives speak for them. And what the world calls overnight success is simply the moment when preparation becomes visible. But I do not live for that moment. I live for the moments that come after. Can I hold the weight without bending? Can I lead without losing myself? Can I multiply without diluting the essence of what made me powerful? These are not answers you find in books. You find them in silence, in the hours before sunrise, in the pages you reread, in the temptations you reject, in the precision of your day. Because abundance does not require more from the world, it requires more from you. And if you are not prepared to give it, not once, but daily, quietly, you will watch abundance pass through your hands like mist. You will touch it, but not hold it. That is why I do not chase. I build, not for display, not for praise, but because I know what is coming. And when it comes, I will not be found reacting. I will be found ready. Every man believes he is ready until readiness is required, until pressure makes demands he cannot meet, until silence turns into exposure, until the future arrives and asks for receipts. And in that moment, it will not ask what you hoped for. It will ask what you rehearsed. The man who builds in silence does not fear the test. He has seen it already, in pieces, every morning, in the discipline of small decisions, in the choice to sharpen instead of show, in the refusal to chase what does not align. That man carries a quiet power, not because he says he is strong, but because he has been through the fire while no one was watching. That is the power I seek, not the performance of strength, but its pattern, not the illusion of control, but the architecture of it. And I know this: the only place to build that architecture is away from the crowd, away from the noise, away from applause. You must retreat not to escape, but to excavate, to dig into the deeper parts of who you are, and then rebuild that man with intention. If your environment constantly interrupts your rhythm, you will never know what you are capable of. If every emotion steers your course, you are not a general, you are a leaf. So I move differently. I treat each day as a campaign, each hour as a soldier, each routine as a weapon. This is not obsession, it is orientation. A life built not on accident, but aim. A strategy not just for winning once, but for winning again and again and again without breaking. Because true abundance is not a moment, it is the sustained expression of alignment. And alignment is not given, it is guarded at every turn, from temptation, from distraction, from the voice inside that says, "You've done enough." Enough is a trap. I do not seek enough. I seek what's required to build, required to endure, required to carry the weight of what I once only imagined. So I practice under imaginary weight. I rehearse when I am tired. I plan for the storm when the sky is clear. Because I know the future is not kind to the casual. It is not merciful to the untrained. It is not generous to the unfocused. It rewards one thing: readiness. And readiness is a relationship with silence. The silence where no one reminds you what to do. The silence where no one claps. The silence where you have to believe before there's evidence. That's the place where strategy is born, where wealth begins, where freedom finds its roots. Do you understand? Most people lose because they want to be seen becoming before they've actually become. They show the blueprint before the bricks are even laid, and then they wonder why the structure collapses. But I will not be one of them. I will vanish if I must. I will train in the background. I will become unrecognizable, not to others, but to who I used to be. And when I return, I will not need to say a word. The formation will speak. The posture will speak. The silence I carried will be louder than their noise. That is my wealth. That is my war. That is my way. The world measures wealth by accumulation. I measure it by endurance. Because what you gain without structure, you will lose without warning. But what you build in silence, you keep, not because you possess it, but because you became it. This is the part no one teaches. Wealth is not a number. It is a rhythm, a way of thinking that survives both drought and flood, a way of moving that does not collapse under applause or pressure. And that rhythm, it cannot be borrowed. It must be earned. Earned by showing up without results, earned by refining the invisible, earned by facing the silence and remaining. If you cannot stay consistent without an audience, you are not building, you are auditioning. I see this everywhere. People chase opportunity with desperation. They force doors open before they're ready to walk through them. They pretend to have answers when they've skipped the discipline required to earn them. And the world, which once cheered, becomes their executioner. Not because the world is cruel, but because it is indifferent. It simply reflects who you are under pressure. It mirrors your foundation. And foundations are either stable or they aren't. There is no in-between. So I ask you again, not what you want, but what you're willing to do when no one affirms you. Can you build when there's no evidence that it's working? Can you trust your structure when the world offers shortcuts dressed as wisdom? The strategist knows shortcuts are always expensive. They cost you the very muscle you need to survive success. They cost you the sharpness you were meant to forge in solitude. They cost you the discipline that wealth demands before it hands you the keys. So I do not rush. The war is not against time, it is against distraction. Every day, the undisciplined lose hours to noise, but I guard mine like gold. I do not begin the day by looking outward. I begin by returning inward, to the blueprint, to the structure, to the strategy. Because if I do not center myself, the world will pull me in every direction, and a man without direction is already conquered. That is why silence matters. Not because it is poetic, because it is protective. It shields your energy from triviality. It keeps your thoughts sovereign. It gives your actions weight. And that weight is what makes you undeniable. So when you see someone move with quiet confidence, when they say little but execute much, know this: they did not stumble into it. They prepared. They bled in silence. They denied what was easy. They built what could not be seen until it could no longer be ignored. This is the strategy most will never understand, because most want to be seen preparing. I want to be ready when it counts. There is no need to tell the world you are coming. Just arrive, formed, focused, unshakable. That is the mark of the disciplined. That is the sound of true wealth. Silence, followed by decisive action. I have walked through cities where abundance screamed from every corner, yet behind the gates, I saw fear. Men with riches, but no rest. Power, but no peace. Visibility, but no vision. Because what they built was not wealth. It was noise shaped into fortune. And fortune, without formation, is a curse wearing a crown. That is why I return always to silence. Silence is my sanctuary, my testing ground, my forge. It is where I meet myself without distortion, where there are no audiences to flatter me, no enemies to provoke me, no followers to mislead me, only the mirror of my own rhythm. And in that mirror, the truth is simple. If I am not building, I am decaying. If I am not practicing, I am weakening. If I am not structuring, I am gambling. You cannot gamble your way into command. You must earn it, slowly, quietly, repetitively. So I begin each day not with ambition, but with alignment. I do not ask, what do I want today? I ask, what builds the man who can carry what I will one day be given? That question changes everything. It removes the need to chase. It eliminates the pressure to prove. It silences the craving to be seen. Because when you are building something that lasts, you do not have time to perform. You do not decorate the scaffolding. You reinforce the beams. You examine the tension points. You look for weaknesses, not to criticize, but to fortify. And when it is ready, truly ready, it will not need to announce itself. Abundance finds structure like rivers find gravity. It flows to where the vessel can hold it. And if that vessel is not formed, it passes. That is the law, and I obey it, not because I am noble, because I am strategic, because I know the storm will come, because I know the test is inevitable, because I know the burden is not in the winning, but in the holding. So, I build. And I keep building. I do not wait to be motivated. I do not seek perfect timing. I do not complain about pace. I only ask, am I in rhythm? Am I aligned? Am I building what cannot be shaken? And when the world asks me how I did it, how I rose without rushing, how I led without shouting, how I held without crumbling, I will give no speech. I will say only this: I prepared in silence. And when abundance came, I was already home.